$182,527. That's what $1,000 a month into 5 Schwab funds could look like 10 years from today, starting from a portfolio of 0. At year 10, that portfolio could be paying you $426 a month in dividends without you selling a single share. I spent the last decade actually running these numbers for friends, neighbors, my own family, and what nobody tells you up front is that the hardest part of this plan is not the math. The hardest part is year 3. We are going to walk through every single year, one by one. By the time we get to year 5, you will see exactly when the first real dividend check shows up. By year 7, the compounding starts to feel almost unfair. And in year 10, I am going to show you 3 different versions of this plan. One for $500 a month, one for $1,000, and one for $2,000. And you will see what each one could put in your bank account every month for the rest of your life. This is the plan. 1 brokerage, 5 tickers, 10 years, and every dollar built from 0. Quick disclaimer before we go any further. I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. The projections in this video are based on a 7.5% blended annual return assumption, which is a conservative haircut from the historical returns of the funds we are about to talk about. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Actual market returns will vary, sometimes significantly. Your tax situation is yours, not mine. Talk to a registered investment advisor or a certified financial planner before you put a single dollar to work. Everything from here on is educational only. Here's what I want you to understand before we start. There are 5 funds in this plan. All 5 of them are run by Schwab. That means 1 brokerage, 1 login, 1 dashboard, 1 tax document at the end of the year, and 0 juggling between providers. The 5 tickers are SCHB, SCHG, SCHD, SCHY, and as a late-stage option, SCHF. SCHB is the broad market base, the foundation. SCHG is the growth tilt that does the heavy lifting in your early accumulation years. SCHD is the dividend anchor, the income engine, the reason most people who finish this plan can actually retire on it. SCHY is the international dividend layer that shows up around the middle of the decade, and SCHF is the optional pure developed international option for the late stage. 5 tickers. That is the whole universe. Now, before I take you through year 1, I have to answer the question that almost every single person watching this is going to ask within the first 90 seconds. So I want to handle it right here at the top before we get into any of the year-by-year math. The question is, what if my job offers a 401k match? The answer is simple. Take the match, always, before this plan, before anything else. If your employer matches 3% of your salary into a 401k, that is a 100% return on that money before the market does anything. There is no Schwab fund, no dividend strategy, no clever rebalance in the world that can compete with free money handed to you by your employer. So, if you have a match available, contribute up to the match first. Then, after the match is captured, the rest of your monthly savings goes into the plan I am about to lay out. Match first, plan second. That is the rule. And it is the only thing I want you to do before anything else we cover today. Okay, year 1. Year 1 is where most people overcomplicate the entire decade. They sit down, they Google dividend ETFs, they get hit with 30 different tickers, they read 40 Reddit threads, and they freeze. 3 months later, they have not invested a single dollar. The cost of that paralysis, if you are starting at age 35 and you would have done this for 30 years, is not small. Across a working life, 3 months of paralysis at the start of a plan can shave more than a year of retirement off the back end. So, year 1 is not about being clever. Year 1 is about being started. In year 1, every dollar goes into SCHB. That is it. 1 fund. SCHB is Schwab's broad market ETF. It owns roughly the 2,500 largest publicly traded companies in the United States. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Google, the whole landscape. The expense ratio is 3 basis points. That means for every $10,000 you have in SCHB, you pay $3 a year in fees. There is no cheaper way to own the entire American stock market. It pays a small dividend yield of around 1%. Not much, But you are not here for the yield in year one. You are here to get the engine running. If you set up Auto Invest at Schwab, which is free and takes about 10 minutes, your money goes in on the first of every month without you thinking about it. On the $500 a month path, you put in $6,000 across the year. By the end of year one, with the market doing what the market has historically done, you could end the year with around $6,450. On the $1,000 a month path, you would end year one near $12,900, and on the $2,000 a month path, you would end somewhere near $25,800. Your first year of dividends might be around $5 a month on the lower path and around $21 a month on the upper path. That is not the point. The point is that the machine is running. The point is that year one is over and you actually did it. Here is the part where most people quietly give up. They look at year one and think, this is taking forever, the dividends are basically nothing. My account barely moved. That feeling is the single biggest reason why this plan fails for the people who fail at it. Everything we are about to talk about, every single one of the next 9 years, is the answer to that feeling. Stay with me. Imagine Harry. He is 35, married, has a kid, has a job, has a mortgage, has the same exhaustion you do at the end of the week. Harry opens Schwab on January 2nd. He sets up the Auto Invest. He picks SCHB. He sets it and forgets it for 12 months. That is the entire year one effort. That is what built looks like in its earliest, least glamorous form. He does not check the account every day. He does not refresh the balance every morning. He does what almost nobody in his shoes does, which is to deliberately not look. The first time he opens the account again is the following January, 12 months later, and the balance is just enough higher than what he contributed for him to nod and keep going. That is the whole victory of year one. Year two. Year two is where the plan first starts to feel like a plan instead of a savings account. In year two, you keep the contribution flowing into the broad market, but you start a second position. You add SCHG. SCHG is Schwab's large-cap growth ETF. Same family, same brokerage. Cheaper expense ratio than SCHB, just 4 basis points. SCHG owns the same household names you already had in SCHB, but it tilts the weighting hard toward the growth side. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Broadcom, Tesla, Meta, Eli Lilly. Tech, communications, and consumer discretionary together make up over 70% of the fund. The dividend yield on SCHG is small, less than 0.5%. It is not here to pay you income. It is here to grow. The mix in year two is 70% SCHB, 30% SCHG. You are not selling anything. You are not rebalancing your year one money. You are just directing the new contributions so that the overall portfolio ends year two at roughly 70-30 broad and growth. By the end of year two on the $1,000 a month path, the portfolio is somewhere near $26,700 and the monthly dividend run rate is creeping up toward $19 a month. Still small, but the SCHG slice has started to do the thing it was hired to do. It carries you on the up years when growth is leading. I want you to understand why this matters even at this stage. Over the historical 10-year window, SCHG has annualized at roughly 18% on a market price basis. SCHB has annualized at roughly 15%. Those are past returns, not predictions, and the next 10 years could look completely different, but the principle is what carries. In the early years, when your contributions are doing most of the lifting and the dividends are still tiny, you want the growth side of the engine working a little harder. That is what SCHG is for. It runs hot in your young years. One more thing about SCHG before we leave year two behind. The fund is concentrated. The top 10 holdings make up roughly 58% of the entire portfolio. NVIDIA alone has historically been over 12%. Apple has been around 9.5%. That is real concentration risk. When tech leads, this fund could fly. When tech falls, this fund could fall harder than the broad market. That is the trade you are signing up for in your young years. You are accepting a rougher ride in exchange for what has historically been a fatter total return. If the idea of one fund being 12% NVIDIA keeps you up at night, you are not wrong to feel that. But in the early accumulation years, the bigger risk is actually under-allocating to growth, not over-allocating. You have decades to ride this out. So year 2 adds a little volatility on purpose. That volatility is the price you are paying for the engine to run hotter. Year 3 is when this plan tries to break you. In year 3, two things happen at once. The first is that your account has grown enough that the daily swings start to feel real. A 5% down day on a $30,000 portfolio is $1,500 vanished on a Tuesday. That hits differently than a 5% down day on $3,000. The second thing that happens is that you have now been doing this for 2 full years, and the dividend income is still, frankly, not life-changing. You are getting maybe $45 a month on the $1,000 a month path. That is a takeout meal. That is not retirement. Year 3 is where 90% of people who quit this plan quit. They look at their account, they see how slowly the dividend line is growing, they read one bad headline about the market, and they pull the plug. They take the money out, they put it in a high-yield savings account or worse, in a single stock that just popped on the news, and they lose the entire compounding curve that was about to start. I am going to ask you something very direct. If you have ever started a plan like this before and quit, this is almost certainly the moment where you quit. So in year 3, we are going to do something psychological. We are going to start layering SCHD. SCHD is Schwab's flagship dividend ETF. It owns about 103 US stocks that have a strong history of paying dividends, that have screened well on financial quality, debt levels, and dividend growth. The expense ratio is 6 basis points. The trailing 12-month distribution yield is roughly 3.3%. Historically, on a market price basis, SCHD has annualized at around 12.9% over the last 10 years, with dividends reinvested. That is past performance, but the point is that this is not some niche income product. SCHD has historically delivered a real total return, not just a yield with no growth behind it. In year 3, your new contributions split 50% into SCHB, 30% into SCHG, and 20% into SCHD. That 20% into SCHD is what changes the emotional shape of this plan. Because for the first time when you log in and check your account, you start to see something other than price action. You see dividends arriving. SCHD pays quarterly, in March, June, September, and December. By the end of year 3, on the $1,000 a month path, your portfolio could be near $41,674, and your monthly dividend run rate could be around $45. $45 a month is still small, but it is something. It is a number that is arriving in your account on a schedule without you doing anything to earn it. And on the day that first SCHD dividend hits, the psychology of this plan completely changes. Year 4. Year 4 is the pivot. For 3 years, you have been mostly building the engine. Year 4 is when the engine starts to deliver something you can actually feel. In year 4, the new contributions go 30% SCHB, 30% SCHG, and 40% SCHD. Notice what just happened. SCHD is now the largest single slice of your new contributions. That is the pivot. The plan stops being a growth-tilted machine and starts becoming an income-tilted machine. Why now? Why not year 2 or year 1? Because the dividend math only works if there is enough principal underneath it to compound. In year 1, even if you had put all $6,000 into SCHD, the annual dividend would have been about $200. Forget about it. In year 4, your portfolio on the $1,000 a month path is approaching $57,700, and the dividend run rate is climbing toward $84 a month. Quarterly, that is a check around $250 hitting in March, June, September, and December. Picture Harry again. He is now 38. He has been at this for 4 straight years. One morning in March, year 4, he opens his Schwab app on the way to work. There is a deposit notification, $252. Not earned, not a paycheck, just there. SCHD dividend payment, automatically reinvested into more shares of SCHD, which will pay him slightly more in June. $252 is not enough to pay rent, but it is enough to feel different. This is the moment that the machine becomes real to him. This is the moment where most of the people who eventually finish this plan tell themselves, somewhere deep in their head, I am going to do this for the next 20 years no matter what. The check is not the prize. The check is the proof that the prize is real. This is built in its first visible form. You did not inherit this. You did not get lucky in a single stock. You contributed every month for 48 straight months, and you let the machine assemble itself piece by piece, paycheck by paycheck. 4 years in, if you are still with me, you are already further down this road than most people get in a lifetime. You just watched the year the portfolio stopped feeling like a savings account and started feeling like a machine. The next 4 years are where compounding stops being a word from a textbook and starts being a deposit in your account. By the end of year 7, you could be looking at a dividend check large enough to cover your phone bill every single month without ever lifting a finger. Stay built. Stay in the seat. We are about to leave the warm-up behind. Year 5. Year 5 is where the plan stops being a US-only plan. You are halfway through the decade. You have a meaningful portfolio, and now we add the international dividend layer, SCHY. SCHY is Schwab's International Dividend Equity ETF. It owns roughly 100 non-US stocks with at least 10 consecutive years of paid dividends. The expense ratio is 8 basis points. The trailing 12-month yield is around 3.4%. The fund leans into Europe with top country allocations to France, the UK, Italy, Australia, and Germany. It also includes some exposure to India and Singapore, so it is technically a global ex-US fund, not a pure developed markets fund. If you specifically wanted developed only, the optional fund is SCHF, which tracks the FTSE Developed ex-US Index. SCHF is cheaper at around 6 basis points and has a similar role. For most people doing this plan, SCHY is the default because it gives you a higher dividend yield with broader country exposure. There is one tax-related thing you need to know about SCHY. The dividends are foreign dividends. They get hit with foreign withholding tax. At the source, depending on the country, if you hold SCHY in a regular taxable brokerage account, you can usually claim the foreign tax credit on your tax return. If you hold SCHY inside an IRA or 401k, you lose that credit permanently. So if you are someone who keeps both a taxable account and a retirement account, SCHY generally goes in the taxable side. That is not financial advice, that is a tax mechanics flag you should run by your accountant. Your new contributions in year 5 split 20% SCHB, 25% SCHG, 40% SCHD, and 15% SCHY. The portfolio on the $1,000-a-month path could end. Year 5 nears $74,900. Monthly dividend run rate climbs toward $133. That is real. That is a quarterly check approaching $400. That covers a phone bill plus a streaming bundle plus a tank of gas. Every quarter. Forever. Without you working an extra minute. Why 15% and not 30%? Because international has historically lagged US equities across a lot of long stretches, and we are using it for diversification, not for return chasing. SCHY is in this plan to reduce the risk that the next 10 years of US markets turn out to be unkind, not to bet that international suddenly outpaces the S&P. 15% is a meaningful sleeve. It is not a token allocation. But it is also not so large that an extended period of dollar strength or a tough decade for European industrials wrecks the rest of your plan. This is what real allocation looks like. Modest, deliberate, and built around the assumption that you do not actually know which region wins the next decade. Year 6. The compound phase. Year 6 is what makes this plan work mathematically, and Year 6 is also where almost nothing exciting happens on the surface. Your allocation does not change. You stay at 20% SCHB, 25% SCHG, 40% SCHD, 15% SCHY. You just keep contributing. You just let the dividends auto-reinvest. You just let the portfolio do the math. Here is the math, and I want you to really sit with this. In year 1, you contributed $6,000 on the lower path, $12,000 on the middle path, $24,000 on the upper path. In year 6, you are still contributing the exact same amount. But now the portfolio itself is doing something it could not do in year 1. The portfolio is paying you dividends, and those dividends are buying more shares, and those new shares are paying their own dividends in the next quarter. This is dividend reinvestment, also known as DRIP, and Schwab supports fractional share DRIP for all 5 of these funds automatically for free, with one toggle in the account settings. On the $1,000 a month path, the portfolio at the end of year 6 could be approaching $93,400. The cumulative dividends paid into the account over 6 years could be more than $5,000. That $5,000 has been quietly bought into more shares, which now generate their own income, which buys more shares. Compounding does not look exciting in year 6. It just looks normal. That is exactly when it is working. There is a question I want you to ask yourself in year 6, because it is the question that separates the people who finish this plan from the people who fall off it. The question is, have I checked my account more than once a week? If the answer is yes, you are doing too much. The whole design of this plan is that the work is front-loaded into the first 10 minutes of year 1 when you set up the auto-invest. After that, the only thing that can hurt this plan is you. The plan does not need your attention to keep paying. It needs your absence. The single biggest predictor of long-term success in a plan like this is not market timing. It is not stock picking. It is not even contribution amount. It is whether you can leave the account alone for 5 years at a time without panic selling. Year 6 is a checkpoint on that discipline. If you can leave year 6 alone, you will leave year 9 alone. And year 9 is where the real wealth actually compounds into existence. I want you to remember a number from year 6, $5,000 in cumulative dividends. Hold on to that because we are going to come back to it when we hit year 10. Year 7. The cash flow becomes material. In year 7, on the $1,000 a month path, the portfolio crosses $113,000. Monthly dividend run rate could be approaching $242 a month. Quarterly checks could be approaching $700. $242 a month is a car payment. It is a high utility bill. It is a week of groceries. It is the kind of recurring deposit where, if you stopped working tomorrow and you needed to start covering small bills with dividend income, you actually could cover a few of them. I want you to imagine someone who started this plan 5 years ago and is now sitting at year 7. Someone who is 42, who has a mortgage, who has a daughter starting college applications, who has the same financial anxiety almost every person their age has. That person opens the Schwab app. $242 hit the account this month in dividends. Not because they earned more at work, not because they got a bonus. Because the plan is now old enough that the principal is large enough to start paying them in a way that feels material. That is the moment in the plan where, in your head, you stop saying, I am building toward retirement, and you start saying, I am partially retired already. You have not stopped working. You may not stop working for another 2 decades, but the bridge between working and not working has officially started under your feet. Most investors quit somewhere between year 4 and year 7. They look at the account, see that it could still be cut in half by one bad quarter, and they panic out. Here is the part that almost nobody warns you about. The 3 years you are about to enter, year 8, year 9, year 10, are statistically where 90% of the wealth in this plan actually gets built. Not earned through new contributions. Earned through dividends paid by money you put in years ago. If you bail in this stretch, you give away the entire payoff. 3 more years. Stay with me. Year 8. Late accumulation, dividend tilt deepens. In year 8, your new contributions shift further toward income. 15% SCHB, 15% SCHG, 50% SCHD, 20% SCHY. Notice that SCHD now claims a full half of your new dollars. Notice that SCHG is shrinking, which is intentional. You are no longer 35. You are 43. You have 8 years of market experience under your belt. You do not need as much growth rocket fuel pushing the portfolio because the income engine, SCHD plus SCHY, is now large enough to grow primarily through dividend reinvestment instead of through raw price appreciation. On the $1,000 a month path, the portfolio at the end of year 8 could be approaching $134,700. The monthly dividend run rate could be approaching $289, $3,472 a year. That is no longer pocket change. That is a meaningful supplemental income stream that someone could start to plan their life around. And it has been built, not borrowed, not gambled, not inherited. I want to flag something subtle about year 8 that often gets missed. By this point in the plan, your annual dividend income on the 1,000-a-month path is starting to approach a third of your annual contribution. That is the threshold where the portfolio starts subsidizing its own growth. You are still putting in $12,000 a year of new money, but the portfolio is now generating roughly $3,500 a year of dividend income on top of that, and all of it is automatically buying more shares. The math has quietly shifted. The portfolio is no longer dependent on your contributions to grow. Your contributions are still helpful, but they are no longer the main driver. The main driver is now the cash flow the portfolio is throwing off on its own. That is the moment you have actually crossed the line from saver to investor, in the deepest sense of those two words. Year 9. Pre-retirement positioning. Year 9 is the year you start positioning the portfolio for what comes next. Whatever your version of next is. Maybe it is full retirement at age 50. Maybe it is going part-time at age 55. Maybe it is just having the optionality of saying no to a job you hate without panicking. Year 9 is when the portfolio is built for that. Your contributions in Year 9 split 10% SCHB, 10% SCHG, 60% SCHD, 20% SCHY. SCHD is now 60% of your new dollars. This is the high water mark of the dividend tilt. The growth side has not disappeared because you still want some price appreciation underneath the income. And SCHB and SCHG are still doing their jobs, but the engine is now squarely income. On the 1,000-a-month path, end of Year 9, the portfolio could be approaching $157,700. The monthly dividend run rate could be approaching $364 a month. Quarterly checks of nearly $1,100. That is a real income stream. That is the kind of dividend cash flow where someone who is paying attention starts running serious numbers on whether they can take a sabbatical. Not retirement. Not yet. But options that did not exist a year ago. We are one step away from the number that started this whole video. Year 10. The number we promised in the very first sentence. I am about to show you what this plan could pay you every single month on 3 different contribution paths: $500, $1,000, and $2,000. One of those 3 numbers is going to be the most important sentence in this video for you. Get ready. This is the year everything you built finally turns into income. Year 10. This is what we have been walking toward for a full decade. This is the year the plan you started with nothing finally answers the question, can I actually retire on this? So let me give you 3 answers, not 1. 3 contribution paths, 3 end results. Look for the one that matches what you can actually contribute today. That is your honest plan. Path A. $500 a month, $6,000 a year. For 10 straight years. Total contributed, $60,000. End of Year 10 portfolio, approximately $91,328. Annual dividend cash flow, approximately $2,557. Monthly dividend cash flow, approximately $213. $213 a month, every single month for the rest of your life, from a portfolio of 0. That is roughly a phone bill plus a streaming service plus a tank of gas, forever. While you sleep, while you work your normal job, while you do whatever you do on a Tuesday afternoon. Path B, $1,000 a month. $12,000 a year. For 10 straight years. Total contributed, $120,000. End of Year 10 portfolio, approximately $182,527. Annual dividend cash flow, approximately $5,111. Monthly dividend cash flow, approximately $426. $426 a month, every single month forever, never touching the principal. That is a car payment for most cars in America. That is a week of groceries plus utilities. That is the number that started this whole video, and now you can see how it was built, one yearly milestone at a time, with no inheritance, no jackpot, no lucky single stock pick. Path C, $2,000 a month. $24,000 a year, for 10 straight years. Total contributed, $240,000. End of year 10 portfolio, approximately $365,057. Annual dividend cash flow, approximately $10,222. Monthly dividend cash flow, approximately $852. $852 a month from a portfolio you built with $2,000 a month in contributions. That is the kind of number where someone could realistically run the math on going part-time or stepping back from a high-stress job at 55 instead of 65. Now, here is the part nobody talks about, and this is the most important sentence in the entire video. Across all three paths, those dividends are paid out without you selling a single share. That means the $80,000 or $180,000 or $365,000 in principal stays right where it is. It keeps paying you next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, for as long as those companies inside SCHD and SCHY keep paying dividends, which, in the case of SCHD, is companies with screened histories of dividend payments going back decades. Picture Harry one more time. Harry is now 45. He started this plan at 35 with nothing. He never inherited a dollar. He never got a windfall. He just put $1,000 a month every month for 10 straight years into 5 Schwab funds in the allocation we walked through together. Today, on the morning of his 45th birthday, he opens his Schwab app. The account shows $182,527. He scrolls to the dividend tab. The trailing 12 months show $5,111 in dividends paid. The next quarterly check is already scheduled. He puts the phone down, eats breakfast, and goes to work. The plan is now self-funding for the rest of his life. That is built. That is what the word actually means once you have lived it for 10 years. Now, before we close, I want to handle the second question almost everyone asks, because I know it is sitting in your head. The question is, what if 10 years is not enough? What if you are 45 years old today, and you are running this plan, and at year 10, you are 55, but you still want more? The answer is, you keep going. The exact same 5 Schwab funds, the exact same auto invest. If you ran the same plan from age 45 to age 55, even if you stopped contributing entirely after year 10 and just let the portfolio continue with dividends, auto reinvesting at the same blended return assumption, the math could roughly double the portfolio in another decade. So $180,000 becomes closer to $375,000. The monthly dividend cash flow could grow from $426 closer to $878. With continued contributions, the numbers could climb further still. The plan does not stop working at year 10. Year 10 is just the first time you can clearly see the income engine. The engine keeps running. The second question that sometimes comes up is, what if Schwab launches a new fund? The answer is, keep checking. The reason this whole plan lives at Schwab is that Schwab keeps launching low-cost, well-built funds in the dividend and growth space. If Schwab launches a 6th fund that fits this plan, you do not have to overhaul anything. You just look at whether it fits one of the existing roles. Does it replace the broad market base, the growth tilt, the income anchor, the international layer? If yes, you have a decision to make. If no, you keep the 5 we already walked through. Now, the disclaimer one more time, because I want this to be in your ears right at the end as clearly as it was at the beginning. The projections we walked through today are educational illustrations only. They are based on a 7.5% blended annual return assumption, which is a conservative haircut from historical returns of the funds we discussed. Past performance of SCHD, SCHG, SCHB, and SCHY does not guarantee future results. Actual market returns will vary, sometimes significantly. Your tax treatment depends entirely on your individual situation, your account types, and your home state. This is not financial advice. Please consult a registered investment advisor or a certified financial planner before making investment decisions based on anything we covered today. Here is the pattern across all 10 years. You started with 0. You picked 1 brokerage. You picked 5 tickers. You let your allocation shift naturally from a growth tilt to a dividend tilt as the portfolio matured. You let DRIP reinvest every quarterly check back into more shares. You never tried to time the market. You never tried to chase a single stock. You never quit at year 3 when nothing was happening. You never bailed in the year 4 to year 7 stretch where 90% of investors fold. You showed up every month for 120 straight months, and the plan paid you back. Tell me in the comments which contribution path you are running, A, B, or C, or your own version.